In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, and despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
You're listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
You magnificent bastard, I read your book.
I drink your milkshake.
How dare you?
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
Captain.
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 No, not yet. Not yet. Don't pass out on me yet.
Of course you realize this means war.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, spell it with a K, a mere 2 miles, east of the locus evil on the entire left coast, the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the Capitol building at 10th and L Street in downtown Sacramento, where late at night you can hear the death of common sense and the concomitant wail as it wafts from that petrifying edifice. And late at night, when I exit the plush, resplendent, sumptuous, palatial, and effulgently bulbous SHR Media Network studios, I'll be smelling the odoriferous stench of sulfur, brimstone, and evil emanating from that mentally destitute column structure aforementioned. Tonight, Back Hair Bernadette is going to be your waitress tonight and your bartender. She's doing double duty and she pours with the best of them. The lava lamp is in fact extinguished. Sorry, it ran out. Well, it blew its light bulb. It is to your right, my left. Excuse me, my right, your left. But in lieu of that, I have lighted candles for my very own penance. By the way, you can listen and chat at shrmedia.com. You can watch the show on the SHR Media YouTube channel and the Facebook page. Also, we don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law, we talk about it all right here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred, the speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the damn toilet. Would you pretty please jiggle the handle? Don't forget to tip your waitress and your bartender tonight. She's new, she's fresh. Please treat her in the dainty fashion that she expects. Back Hair Bernadette. And she must have acquired that nickname for a rather solid reason, I would get. I could be wrong. I mean, it's not like I've looked or anything. Just saying. Hashtag. Just saying. Tonight, here in the Saloon, late night, conservatarian talk radio, created just for you and no one else. Your ossicles. Anybody and everybody that's listening right now. Yours and yours alone. No one else's. Not the people downtown. Certainly not the people the people at 10th and L Street. So tonight I got Dan Butcher. Dan Butcher, are you there? Dan Butcher, sir.
I'm here. Can you hear me, BZ?
I can. It's a wonderful thing, this technology. Isn't
it though?
Customarily, what happens is that Dan and I, and this is where the technical challenge really comes in. It's not so much the technical challenge, but the physical challenge. In order, customarily in the past, to speak to Dan Butcher, what I have had to do is pay multiple thousands of dollars and phone poles to string between the studio and between Dan Butcher's studio himself. You know how much string that is to run, essentially? That'd be at least 1,000 miles between here and Texas. It's really expensive. So I decided there's this thing called Facebook, which I've been kicked off of a couple of times, but that's like who hasn't on the right in any event. So no string technology using Facebook tonight. And it's been a long time since we have spoken. And Dan and I always have a good time together. And the thing that I kind of did to Dan for a long time, at least a couple of years, I've been doing to Ken McClinton. Ken will call me up, or I'll be on Ken's show on Monday. Dan, you probably know what's coming. I'll be on Ken McClinton's show on Monday nights, and Ken will send me, not a script, but he'll send me the topic. And then my job is to make sure that whatever topic Ken sends me, I never address. And as a matter of fact, I come up with my own topic. I totally ignore Ken. He'll try to drag me back into the topic area. I won't be having it unless I'm drunk. And then he'll be faux upset that we didn't get to talk about that, but we still have a great time. The deal with Dan is that I always dig is Dan is he can speak off the cuff, and I learned that a long time ago. So with Dan and I, what we have tacitly not really agreed to, but it just kind of ends up this way, is I won't tell Dan what we're going to be talking about tonight. But Dan doesn't care, because Dan can speak contemporaneously with the best of them, because Dan knows a lot of stuff. Well, that leads into this. Dan knows a lot of stuff for one very important reason. If you want to find out what's going on in Texas, he has this little site called High Plains Daily News. Dan, this is your cue. Tell us about High Plains Daily News and what is it and where can people go to find it?
Well, let me tell you, the High Plains Daily News is one of the largest. People have heard me tell this story over and over again. But, the High Plains Daily News is the incarnation of a simple political blog I started over 11 years ago called High Plains Pundit. And, of course, High Plains Pundit has what has progressed into my long-running podcast, the High Plains Pundit podcast. But, the very first day that we launched, the original incarnation of this, we had 59 readers, page views and such. And now over the years, the High Plains Pundit has morphed into a 24/7 news outlet. The High Plains Daily News, which is hpdailynews.com. We now average over 6 million page views a month.
Holy crap.
But obviously, that's not near the audience of what the Fox News and CNN, all those guys get. But we're a regional media outlet. We serve a metro area here in the state of Texas. We basically serve the Texas Panhandle, eastern New Mexico, the Oklahoma Panhandle, go up into Kansas a little bit, down to the Lubbock area. We serve our home metro areas. About 310,000 people, and we are the largest media outlet in our region, and we're one of the largest, let's say mid-size city regional outlets, media outlets in the country. And I'm very proud of that, what we've grown into over the years. And of course, a long part of that is my long-running podcast, the High Plains Pundit podcast. And of course, I had to take some time off this past year. BZ is very well aware that last couple of years, health-wise, has not been very good to me. This past year, I nearly died twice. And I don't even know if I've shared this with BZ, so this might be some news to you on the air, BZ.
I put that in that's news category. Yeah, I'd do that. Yeah.
I spent 8 days in the hospital. Had a real bad case of pancreatitis and started shutting down my organs and all that. And it was touch and go there the first 48 hours, but I've made it through. A lot of prayer, great doctors helped me through it. About a month later, I had to go back in the hospital again because I had developed blood clots in my lungs. Now, you want to talk about something that's scary. When they tell you you've got blood clots in your lungs, first thing that comes to your mind is I'm dead. That is what comes to your mind. They say you got blood clots in your lungs. That's the first thing I thought. I'm dead. I'm not walking out of here. But once again, through grace and lots of prayer and support of family, friends, and my readers and my listeners, started massive prayer chains. Walked out of the hospital again, and here I am back. We're in the middle of a hotly contested congressional race in my home area. Of course, a longtime Congressman Mac Thornberry, who was also the chairman of the Armed Services Committee for a while, has decided to hang it up after 26 years in Congress. And so we've got 15 Republicans, 3 Democrats, and 1 Libertarian running in the March primaries. Of course, to go into the general election in November. And we have some big names that are running in this congressional race. And Chris Edgecombe, who's been a long time political donor to the GOP here in Texas, carries a lot of weight and money behind him. A local guy by the name of Josh Weingarner, who actually worked for Phil Gramm and Senator Cornyn for a long time, is running. And probably the one that brings the most recognition to that particular race is Ronnie Jackson. A lot of you guys might recognize Ronnie Jackson. He was a longtime doctor to the presidents. He worked for George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and, of course, Donald Trump until – and of course, Ronnie was a rear admiral. He actually retired from the Trump administration. He was actually nominated to be the head of the VA, but then obviously there was some controversy around his nomination, and Ronnie decided to withdraw his name. And then, of course, he was promoted to a chief presidential advisor to the president until he decided to retire. So, and of course, I interviewed Ronnie today and had a great interview with him. And so, but the basic line is, man, I'm back better than ever. I'm not 100%, I'm not even 50%, but we're off and running, and we've got our podcast going back full time every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And of course, everything going on at the High Plains Daily News, man. I'm staying just a little busy.
I would say so, which is one of the reasons that it's been kind of difficult to get in touch with you. If you go to High Plains Daily News, hpdailynews.com, hpdailynews.com. You go there right now, quick like a bunny, and you're going to see at the top all these places that you can go on his website. Local news, opinion, farm and ranch, Texas, national news, world news, sports, the scorecard, videos, and Dan's podcast itself. So, hpdailynews.com, as Sean Lewis is wont to say, Sackhead Sean, the second best newsman in the business. Now, the funny thing is, Sackhead Sean is here in the studio tonight. He's not feeling well, so he's not going to be on the air. I can distinctly remember asking him one time, okay, when I first found out who you were, Dan, I said, all right, okay, you keep calling him the second best newsman in the business. So in your estimation, who's the first best newsman in the business?
Peter Jennings.
He didn't. I didn't get an answer. I just didn't get an answer.
Now I say that if Sean's in the newsroom and if he heard me say that, he probably just rolled out of the chair when I said that. But it's kind of a long-running joke between Sean and I, because Sean and I have done I bet Sean and I have done podcasts together going back 10 years probably, at least. Of course, about the same time that I go back that far with our good friend Ken McClinton too. I always tell a story about Ken because when I had my podcast network, I was one of the first ones that carried Ken's show, and he thought I was crazy, contacting him, wanting his show to be on my network and stuff. He didn't return my call. He didn't take me serious. And finally got through to him and developed a great friendship with Ken. And, talking about Ken, I've hosted Ken's show a few times, and one of the times that I hosted his show, he literally called me up 15 minutes before showtime and said, "Hey, Dan, can you host my show? It starts in 15 minutes. Here's all the passwords. Good luck."
Yeah, drop everything.
And, I'm not one of these guys. I make a lot of people mad sometimes because I'm not one of, you talked about, talking off the cuff and stuff, like all these political interviews. Like today, I did a 90-minute plus interview with Ronnie Jackson. My prep time for that interview was literally 15 minutes before the interview. And I do all the questions off the cuff. I have a general idea what I want to ask, what I want to talk about, but I kind of let guests steer the conversation, and then I pick away as the discussion's going and expand and go different directions and stuff like that. And I've always found that to be the best way to do interviews for me personally. And I enjoy doing it that way. And I think it makes for a great discussion and makes it very genuine and stuff like that. And that goes back to Sean, I've done a lot of, I've been on the air with you a lot. I've been with Sean a lot. Sean hosted his own radio show for a while, and I actually hosted. I was Sean's guest host, and I actually hosted for him once or twice a week on the show. And I would always, I took the same approach then. I would host it, just kind of off the cuff, just whatever came to mind, and I've continued to do that. And it's just this is something I always tell, when I talk to young media guys and young men and women wanting to come into media, I always ask them, what do you think your role and what your job is? And a lot of the days you get a lot of different answers, and I remind them, your job is to provide information. That's your job. Your job is to vet candidates, to be a checks and balances of the government, to give people things to think about. It doesn't matter if they love you. It doesn't matter if they hate you. It doesn't matter if they agree with you. It doesn't matter if they disagree with you. If you have written something and they have read it and they've learned something from it, or it's made them stop and think, then you've done your job.
Yes. Exactly. The bulk of people today, I guess, because I've heard you say this before, basically think that their job is to be a social justice warrior. What's not?
Social justice, to change the world. That's not your job. And the other thing is, if you're going into media thinking you're going to, there's a lot of people that have made a lot of money doing this. But man, if you're not doing it Rush Limbaugh is a great example. Rush has made a lot of money doing what he's doing. He doesn't have to do it anymore. The guy is practically deaf, but he continues to do his radio show. He's been diagnosed with advanced lung cancer. He's going to take some time off, but he wants to continue doing his show. He doesn't have to. Folks, you have to do this. It has to be a passion. It has to be a calling. It has to be something you really enjoy.
Yep.
And if it's not, you don't have any business doing it. And folks, if you're in this business, I absolutely detest agenda journalism. I detest opinion journalism masquerading as news content. That's a bunch of bullshit. And so, and I will call somebody out in a heartbeat doing that nonsense. And man, I'm journalism 101 to the core. Get the facts, follow through the story wherever it goes to the end. Whether people like it or not, that's how you follow through. People kept going. The Russian collusion story is a great example. You kept following through on the story. Lots of twists and turns here and there. Lots of different angles. But in the end, when you followed through on the story, there was nothing to it. Absolutely nothing to it involving President Trump. The same thing happened with Watergate. Watergate, you followed it through. And guess what? It went all the way to the top, to the President of the United States, and ended up with Nixon resigning. That is the job to do, to follow through to the end and provide. You're going to make mistakes. If you make mistakes, own up to it. Sometimes a story takes a different angle from where you originally were going with it. Well, then you have to correct and follow that lead and take the story that direction if that's the truth. I think people have forgotten what the truth is.
That's absolutely correct. It's like being a cop. It's exactly like being a cop. You get into a case, you make a case. If you're in detectives, you let the facts and the evidence lead you wherever the heck it goes. Tonight, what I'd like to do is, by the way, I should have found out this in advance. Can you be here for an hour, or can you be here for the full 2 hours tonight, Dan?
Man, I can be here as long as you like tonight, man.
Okay, great, folks. We're talking to Dan Butcher.
I mean, I'm tired, but this is fun, man. This is kind of relaxing.
I love this kind of stuff. I love the riff back and forth, as I indicated.
But here's the thing, DZ. I have to share this because you were promoting this that I was going to tell all tonight.
No. You're not going to tell all. You're going to reveal all. There's a big difference. There's a big difference between that.
There's a funny story behind this. A few years ago, for a long time, I never did video with my podcast and stuff because it's not uncommon for me to do my podcast literally in my pajamas and bathrobe. And I was making a joke with DZ about that. And if we were going to do video tonight, if it was just going to be audio, because I needed to know if I needed to wear my bathrobe or if I needed to wear real clothes or whatever with that. And so, we were kind of making a joke about that. But the other thing is, you wanted me to talk about the time I was abducted by space aliens, and then how they dropped me off to live with Bigfoot. But that's another story.
Well, yeah, it is. What we did, we originally, folks, the original parameters of talking tonight was we were both going to get into darkened rooms, turn off all the lights, get naked, and rub gun oil and potato chips all over our bodies, and then speak to each other and have a show. And at first blush, that sounded okay until I realized that, you know what, I got to do a show in actual studio, so I'm wearing a hat and I actually have a shirt on tonight. Now, I'm not wearing any pants, though, folks. I want to tell you, I'm not wearing any pants. So,
but BZ, the original thing you just described was the original Sackhead Saturday Night broadcast.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. So, folks, in Dan Butcher, would it surprise you to think that I've got an assload of stories with tons of audio cuts to cover?
Oh, not at all.
My first thought was I wanted to do this on Wednesday, but I couldn't do it on Wednesday. I wanted to go through the full State of the Union speech, and I had it all queued up and everything. And then I thought, no, I'll just pull some salient parts out of it. But that having been said, there are a ton of issues and articles and sound cuts that I want to go over with Dan Butcher tonight. One of them is, it's still amazing that he lasted this long. Kirk Douglas, he's a massive Hollywood icon, the star of Spartacus. Man, he was in 92, he got 92 acting credits. He was in 75 movies. He was a superstar before there ever was a superstar, and he just passed away 2 days ago. At the age of 103. 103. That's astounding. His son is Michael Douglas. I just want to give a shout out to Kirk Douglas because I'm sure he's listening to the show right now. Dude, what an amazing, amazing career he had. Do you, Dan Butcher, have a favorite Kirk Douglas movie?
I do, and it's going to surprise a lot of people, I think.
Okay.
I think a lot of people always throw Spartacus out there as their favorite Kirk Douglas movie. I think that's probably the one he's best known for. But my favorite Kirk Douglas movie, quite honestly, is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Oh, I can see that. Yes.
That is my favorite Kirk Douglas movie. Now, granted, I'm a big science fiction guy.
Me too.
I love, especially old sci-fi movies. I'm a big Star Wars guy. I'm a big Star Trek guy, and I just love science fiction and different movies like that. And so, throwing 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and the character that he played in that one, he's just playing. It's not like he wasn't. It was more of a bit role in that. He's playing a sailor that plays a guitar that just happens to be saved along with some other folks when the Nautilus sinks their boat, and he's kind of along for the ride, but he turns the role into a major role in the movie, and so like I said, he was a guy that could play a lot of different roles. And but for me, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, that's the first movie I ever saw him in, and even to this day, I love watching that movie. It's one of my favorite movies. So that would be my favorite one he's in. I
like his old stuff. Lust for Life was the movie about where he was portraying the guy that cut off his ear, not Pablo Picasso. Damn, now I can't think of the artist's life. And anyway, okay.
Oh my God, I can't either.
Okay. All right. Move along. We'll not talk about that movie. He was also in Paths of Glory, which was about a World War I soldier, which is the first movie that Stanley Kubrick directed in a major fashion. My all-time favorite Kirk Douglas movie, however, is one that I bet most people have never seen. It's called Lonely Are the Brave, and it's about a rancher who gets on a horse, and he's trying to evade being captured, essentially behind a bogus warrant. Walter Matthau plays the sheriff who is after him, and then finally he's got a rifle with him. He's trying to escape the cops that are all after him. And finally, he's a throwback in history. He's an old-time cowboy in the 60s, and finally he gets hit. He ends up on a highway and ends up getting hit by an automobile. I think it was a big truck, if I'm not mistaken. But it was just, wow. I thought it was a great movie. It was a gripping movie.
Two other movies that I loved him in. He was in The Man from Snowy River.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which I thought was another good movie. Going back to the kind of to the sci-fi, movies.
Saturn.
A lot of people forget that he played in The Final Countdown. He played the captain.
God, yes.
Of the Enterprise in that movie. So that's another one of my favorite movies he was in.
God, yes, I forgot The Final Countdown. That is a classic. And for those of you who don't know what that is, let's see, we got about 2 minutes before the bottom of the hour break, Dan. For those of you who don't know what it is, The Final Countdown is where a carrier in current times, the movie was made in the early 80s, I believe, somehow goes through a time tunnel and goes back into World War II when the Japanese are about to bomb Pearl Harbor. And it's just fascinating. The Final Countdown, I'd forgotten about that. That is a great movie.
He also, and in 1973, he also did Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which I thought Spencer Tracy played Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in a movie. So that was kind of a reach for him when he played that. And I think it was the same thing for Kirk Douglas when he played Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So anyway, a lot of people don't remember, think a lot of different movies for Kirk Douglas, but a lot of the sci-fi and horror stuff that he did was some of his best stuff.
It was. I would agree. And they weren't many of his major roles in which he's customarily thought. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to go to a breaking news story. This was broken in probably about 2 hours ago by the Washington Examiner. And then I'll go over the story and talk to Dan. When we come back, we'll go over Pelosi, the impeachment, the State of the Union. And quite frankly, we'll go over Romney. There's so many things to talk about. And the other thing I want to touch on with Dan Butcher, who is here tonight. And no, he's not naked. Come on, get that out of your brain, people. God, what are you listening to or watching?
On.
Yeah, he's at least got his bathrobe on. I want to talk about the current state of the Democrats, as I call them, the Demorats, and where they're going these days and what they're going to be doing. It's so much stuff to talk about. I am BZ, the bloviating Zeppelin. That is Dan Butcher of High Plains Daily News. We will be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Shannon Wright of The Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Mike's not here, so I gotta talk fast. You gotta join us. Fall season. Getting ready to start up with a whole bunch of new stuff. News and food and politics and sports and entertainment and a whole bunch of stuff. But wait, Mike's coming. I gotta go. Remember, Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media, Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. Make sure you tune in.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America, one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Join me, Jack Alexander, for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the issues affecting the USA. I fearlessly take on the issues that everyone else is too scared to touch. The Jack Alexander Experiment podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. The Jack Alexander Experiment, because it's not a matter of left versus right, it's a matter of right versus wrong.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Featuring the effervescent contrarian Sackheads Clint, plus the unrestrained bulbosity of BZ, the Sackheads Against Tyranny is a real chat show. Doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with Double the Hosts, you can listen every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Please note, some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, warranty void in Montenegro.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we are back now. The first half hour is gone, done, quick like a bunny. We're talking tonight to Dan Butcher. And Dan is the owner and author and scriber and chief bottle washer, etc., at High Plains Daily News. Go there if you want to find out what's happening in Texas. Local stuff, opinion stuff. It's all right there. Go to hpdailynews.com. hpdailynews.com. Also got to say this. Are you a supporter of the Second Amendment? Go there again, quick like a bunny. If you're on Facebook, go to the USGOA, the U.S. Gun Owners Association. Texas Fred happens to run that. And if you want to become a member and want to find out about all things Second Amendment and firearms, go and become a member of the group. U.S. Gun Owners Association, run by Texas Fred. Great dude, great guy. Always recommend it. Support the Second Amendment, period. End of statement. And that would be italics, bold, etc. I told Dan and everybody else that there's a breaking story. This just came out of the Washington Examiner. And Dan, after I read a little bit of this, I'd like your comments. This is by Alana Goodman. Tonight, I should say. Confidential banking records related to Hunter Biden are now in the Senate hands, says a report. The U.S. Treasury Department has started turning over confidential banking records related to Hunter Biden in response to requests from Senate investigative committees. Senate Finance Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley and Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee Chairman Ron Johnson asked the Treasury in November for suspicious activity reports, banking alerts involving money laundering or fraud related to Biden and his associates. They're also looking into, did Hunter Biden get on Air Force One and Air Force Two along with his father, Joe Biden, and go to Ukraine? Did the taxpayers pay for it? Who was there? On which aircraft? And on behalf of whom, what business was conducted for the United States? And was there true quid pro quo? Now, the funny thing that I found interesting about all of this is Democrats. When you open a door, expect other people to walk through that door. And don't be shocked when they do. Dan Butcher, your thoughts?
Where are you going to start with this one?
Well, it's glorious.
Let me tell you, first of all, about time. We should have, President Trump has been, from the top of his lungs, as fast as his little Twitter fingers can tweet, has been saying, hey, you know what? We need to look into the Bidens. We need to look and see, what was going on here. Because, hey, is any of this tied to the Obama administration? Who all benefited from this? This is what I was trying to tell you, folks. While you were trying to impeach me, this is what I've been trying to tell you. And lo and behold, here we go. We're starting to look at it. And it's also nice to see, for a change, hey, we're actually going to investigate somebody.
Finally.
And listen, I think they have really, and I'm going to lay this squarely on the Republicans. I'm going to put the fault on the Republicans for this. I think if they had fought back a little bit more, if they had investigated, but if they had investigated Barack Obama and his administration's ties to, you want to talk about the real Russian collusion? They knew from the start that the Russians were trying to test the electoral process in the United States, but they said and did absolutely nothing about it. Should have done some investigating there. Probably should have investigated Hillary and Bill and Chelsea and the Clinton Foundation a little bit closer. There's those in the media that have been just going after this, saying, hey, there's some stuff here. Go, look at this. And so now, all of a sudden...
Have you ever nailed it? Oh, my God. Have you ever... You have nailed it.
But here's the thing, too, BZ. Let's see if they have the gut. Here's the thing. Let's see if they have the guts to actually follow through. They've got the information. Now, let's face it. After the fiasco, there's a whole other thing we can discuss. The fiasco that just took place in Iowa. But Biden's presidential campaign is done. His South Carolina firewall is not there anymore. His campaign is done. So this isn't going to do anything to hurt his presidential aspirations, because he's done a good job of that himself by just being a horrible candidate. But still, you finally have the opportunity to, the Obama administration. Barack Obama has prided himself on saying, hey, you know what? We were the cleanest administration. We were the less controversial. We were the most transparent. The stuff they usually say. And now you have the opportunity to actually look into some different things involving that administration that we should have looked at. I don't know, with Benghazi, there's something for you. But and a whole bunch of other things. Gun running. There's another one for you.
Oh God, exactly, Dan Butcher. I want to make this point.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got to make this point. And when you said this tickled my tickler file and made me remember. Do you know who's really responsible for the current Democrat and leftist lunacy? Just like you said, I think it's the GOP. They had the opportunity for decades to push back against Democrat and leftist bullshit, and they refused to stand up for themselves, and by dint of that, by extension, the American people. The GOP became the enablers. So with no subsequent pushback, the Democrats and the leftists were simply emboldened. Nobody existed to stop them. Even when the GOP held the Oval Office, the House, the Senate, they chose to piss all that power away and do nothing. And they held, as you just said, no one accountable or to task. So is it any wonder... Well, where's that coming from? Hang on, I think we have a phone call just for a second. Hang on. So my point was, they didn't hold anybody to task. So is it any wonder, really, that the Democrats and the leftists are going ever more insane? Because for the first time in the guise of President Trump, they're seeing moves and plays against their ridiculous policies never before encountered. And they are gobsmacked by being so outwardly opposed, much less with such incredible efficiency. So we have somebody on the phone, and unidentified caller, speak to us now or forever hold your codpiece.
Hello, BZ.
Howdy, what it is?
This is Mike. You're right. These guys, I said it in the chat room, the Democrats have not only circled the drain, but they're working their way through the pipes, going out to the yard. That's where they are right now. And this whole thing with Hunter Biden, I mean, over the last few weeks, Glenn Beck has done 2 big specials about this exact thing, about following the money, basically. Where's the money coming from? Where's it going? Setting up shell companies, Ukrainian oligarchs, and all this stuff that's leading back to Hunter Biden,
Like I said, they opened that door. They shouldn't be surprised when people walk through. And then when they walk through with troop strength, you got to expect that. What we don't know, however, also, Dan Butcher, is we have an interesting point that no one has remembered and everyone seems to be conveniently forgetting about. So maybe my question to you, Dan Butcher, I'm going to mention Durham and his investigation and his series of investigations. No one mentions him. Do you think, Dan Butcher, that any of Durham's investigations are going to become of substance? And are, as you indicated earlier, are we finally going to see someone pay any sort of political price for the stupidity and outright crimes and corruption that have been committed on behalf of or by the Democrats in the past, sir? Dan, you there? Dan. Okay, why am I not getting Dan? Okay. Let's see if I have. Okay. Let's try this. Because I think we got cut.
It wouldn't be a show without technology reaching up and biting the technical Luddite, right, Beezy?
No, it wouldn't be the proper kind of show. I think I know why this is happening, though. Okay. Well, anyway, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Okay.
We're going to see if we can get Dan back. Dan, do you happen to be there? Okay. Let's try this one more time. Because, as you would expect, if for whatever reason I can't get Dan back...
Hello.
There we go. Hello.
Hello, this is the government. We are listening to your call between EZ and Dan Butcher.
Apparently.
We have interrupted to spy on what you're doing. And if it happens again, we're going to cut your asses off again.
Okay, so apparently the government didn't like us talking about what we were talking about. Good God, mister.
We're on Hillary's list now.
Boy, apparently. Hey, Dan, I got to play this cut. You may have heard this before, but I have the full, let's see, what is this, 6 minutes. And this will take us up to almost the top of the hour, but not quite. It'll be enough time for us to comment, I think. But I want to play this every damn show because this illustrates, people don't hear this. People have not played this. And I almost want to play this every damn night on the show from now until November 3rd. And that's this. This is the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee from, I think they're talking about SD 226. And they've got a bunch of people in here. And this is Ted Cruz, and he's talking about social media, and he's talking to a leftist guy, but this leftist guy is actually telling him the truth for once. Folks, listen to this about the November 2020 elections.
You're not a Republican, and nor are you a conservative. Is that accurate?
That would be an understatement.
Okay, so this guy's name is Dr. Robert Epstein. He is not a person of the right at all.
Indeed, you're the former editor-in-chief of Psychology Today.
Correct.
So you're a respected academic. You testified before this committee that Google's manipulation of votes gave at least 2.6 million additional votes to Hillary Clinton in the year 2016. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I want to make sure I understand. You personally supported and voted for Hillary Clinton.
I was a very strong public supporter of Hillary Clinton, yes.
So you're not dismayed that people voted for her, but your testimony is that Google is, through bias in search results, manipulating voters in a way they're not aware of.
on a massive scale. And what I'm saying is that I believe in democracy, I believe in the free and fair election, more than I have any kind of allegiance to a candidate or a party.
And looking forward, if I understood your testimony correctly, you said in subsequent elections, Google and Facebook and Twitter and big text manipulation could manipulate as many as 15 million votes in a subsequent election?
In 2020, if all these companies are supporting the same candidate, there are 15 million votes on the line that can be shifted without people's knowledge and without leaving a paper trail for authorities to trace.
Now, you described the Go Vote reminder, and you said it wasn't a public service announcement, but rather manipulation. Can you explain how? I'm not sure everyone followed the details of that.
Well, sure. If on Election Day in 2016, if Mark Zuckerberg, for example, had chosen to send out a Go Vote reminder, say just to Democrats, and no one would have known if he had done this, that would have given that day an additional at least 450,000 votes to Democrats. And we know this without doubt because of Facebook's own published data, because they did an experiment that they didn't tell anyone about during the 2010 election. They published it in 2012. It had 60 million Facebook users involved. They sent out a Go Vote reminder, and they got something like 360,000 more people to get off their sofas and go vote who otherwise would have stayed home. The point is, I don't think that Mr. Zuckerberg sent out that reminder in 2016. I think he was overconfident. I think Google was overconfident. All these companies were. I don't think he sent that out. Without monitoring systems in place, we'll never know what these companies are doing. But the point is, in 2018, I'm sure they were more aggressive. We have lots of data to support that. And in 2020,
oh my God,
you can bet that all of these companies are going to go all out. And the methods that they're using are invisible. They're subliminal. They're more powerful than most any effects I've ever seen in the behavioral sciences. And I've been in the behavioral sciences for almost 40 years.
You know, our Democratic colleagues on this committee often talk about what they view as the pernicious effect of big money and big corporate dollars. What you are testifying to is that a handful of Silicon Valley billionaires and giant corporations are able to spend millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars collectively, massively influencing the results of elections. And there's no accountability. You said we don't know. We have no way of knowing if Google or Facebook or Twitter sends it to Democrats or Republicans, or how they bias it, because it's a black box with no transparency or accountability whatsoever. Am I understanding you correctly?
Senator, with respect, I must correct you.
Please.
If Mark Zuckerberg chooses to send out a Go Vote reminder just to Democrats on Election Day, that doesn't cost him a dime.
Fair enough. Do you happen to know?
That's true.
Who the Hillary Clinton campaign's #1 financial supporter was in the year 2016?
I think I do, but please remind me.
The #1 financial supporter of the Hillary Clinton campaign in the 2016 election was the parent company of Google, Alphabet, who was our first witness. They were her #1 financial donor, and your testimony is, through their deceptive search methods, they moved 2.6 million votes in her direction. I would think anybody, whether or not you favor one candidate or another, should be deeply dismayed about a handful of Silicon Valley billionaires having that much power over our elections to silently and deceptively shift vote outcomes.
Again, with respect, I must correct you. The 2.6 million is a rock bottom minimum. The range is between 2.6 and 10.4 million, depending on how aggressively they used the techniques that I've been studying now for 6.5 years.
Wow. Could you say that again, please?
The 2.6 million is a rock bottom minimum. The range is between 2.6 and 10.4 million votes, depending on how aggressive they were in using the techniques that I've been studying, such as the search engine manipulation effect, the search suggestion effect, the answer bot effect, and a number of others. They control these, and no one can counteract them. These are not competitive. These are tools that they have at their disposal exclusively.
If any headline comes out of this hearing, that should be it.
How do you fight that? Dan Butcher, how do you fight that?
I'll tell you exactly how you fight that. And this leads to my own theory as to why the Democrats were actually trying to impeach Donald Trump. They weren't trying to impeach him over a phone call. They weren't trying to impeach him over Russian collusion, anything like that. They were trying to impeach him because they are scared to death of this guy. They are intimidated by him. They are frightened by him and the messaging that he does. Because what Donald Trump has managed to do, he has managed to take social media through Twitter and turn it and use it to his advantage. The very things that this guy was just talking about, Donald Trump has been able to use the exact same mediums, whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook, but primarily Twitter. He's been able to turn the tables on them and take the fight to them through social media. And he takes the fight to them through social media, and that is when you see not 500, not 5,000, but 10,000, 15, 20,000 people showing up to his rallies, another 100,000 in the streets, trying to get into a rally, waiting in 30, in 30-degree weather, different things like that. Donald Trump has been very effective in taking the fight to them using the exact same methods they were trying to use against Republicans, conservatives, the president, exactly. And my whole theory on impeachment was they were trying to impeach him because they are scared of him. They are afraid of him. They are intimidated. They're scared to death of this guy and what he can do and how he can motivate voters, how not only Republicans, okay, not only Republicans. Folks, this is a misconception that only Republicans are turning out to his rallies. Okay, you have Republicans, you have Democrats that are sick and tired of the socialist turn that the Democratic Party has taken, and then you have the independents, which make up the majority of the voting bloc in this country. Young people are turning out to Donald Trump's rallies. He is using the same medium, the same methods that they tried to use against him, turning the tables to motivate voters and turn the vote in his direction. That's how you fight it. You copy exactly what Donald Trump is doing.
Here's exactly a perfect illustration, Dan Butcher, of what you just said. And I was going to insert this later on, but you brought it up now, so I'll throw this stat out right now. I discovered that among independents today, the rate of approval of President Trump is 80%. Now, isn't it true then, Dan Butcher, that the Democrats have been saying for quite some time, you know what? You guys don't have the independents, meaning conservatives. We've got the independents. We have the vote of the independents, which is why we're going to kick your butt in November. But the Democrat Party is falling apart. We're going to talk about that in the second hour. When we come back, I have a cut that is, again, perfectly illustrative of what the leftists and the Democrats, and particularly what I call the American media maggots, clearly Dan Butcher excluded, what they really think of you. What they really do think of you. They think you're rubes. They think you're stupid. With your God and your guns and your Bible and you guys are nothing but a bunch of Southern hicks. One of the smartest guys I know I'm talking to right now is Dan Butcher, and he happens to be in Texas. Isn't that astounding? Oh, there's another thing that apparently the Democrats have forgotten about and are losing rapidly. The black vote.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even addressed that fact yet. And the inroads that Donald Trump has made into black Americans, supporting them, and how they were cut down Monday night during the State of the Union speech by all the Democrats that happen to be in the chamber. When we come back, I have a great audio cut. Want to have Dan Butcher's comments on that. More audio cuts, more insightful observation by Dan Butcher himself. The second best man in the news business, but I still can't get out of Sackett, Sean, why you're only the second. Because he won't tell me who he thinks the first best guy is. I don't understand that. Folks, this is Dan Butcher. I'm BZ, and we'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
New show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics,
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
and all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events? All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. You can follow me on Twitter at BZEP at BZEP. You can like me and follow me on my Facebook page, Bloviating Zeppelin. Please friend, follow, and like the SHR Media Facebook page and subscribe to the SHR Media YouTube channel. Click notifications, give our videos a big thumbs up. We got great hosts, great videos, great shows. Also, you know what? Are you a supporter of the Second Amendment? Because I know I am. You might want to join the U.S. Gun Owners Association on Facebook, the USGOA. Go into your little search field right there on Facebook, insert USGOA or U.S. Gun Owners Association, run by Texas Fred. Great guy, great group to belong to. All the firearms and Second Amendment news that you will need, want, all right there in one spot. Tonight we have Dan Butcher, the second best guy in the news business. God, I got to stop saying that because no one is telling us who the number one guy is. This is, I told you when we come back, this is what leftists, Democrats, and the American media maggots think of you.
Donald Trump couldn't find Ukraine on a map if you had the letter U and a picture of an actual physical crane next to it. He knows that this is, an administration defined by ignorance of the world.
You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
And so that's partly him playing to their base.
Anyone who supported this president is, at best, looking the other way on racism, at best.
The credulous boomer Rube demo that backs Donald Trump, that wants to think that Donald Trump's a smart one, and y'all elitists are dumb.
Trump always loves the low information guy.
You elitists with your geography and your maps.
Issue of racism across the country, because that's his base.
Your math and your reading.
You're all racists.
Reading, your geography, no other country.
Yeah. Okay, they think you're a joke, that you mean nothing, and I'm going to keep replaying that. Because we have to prove them, the Democrats, leftists, and American media maggots. We have to prove them wrong in November, and I think we will do it. Dan? Dan Butcher. Okay. Tell you what, we'll try it again. In the meantime, there we go. Dan might have had to make a potty break or something like that. Which is okay because, we're all human on this bus. While we're waiting for Dan, another article that I wanted to get into is this. We know that the Iowa caucuses were a complete and ranting, raving cluster. They're still a cluster. They still don't know who won. And as a matter of fact, they're not really calling anybody. The funny thing is about this is that it's closest. I can't pronounce his name. It's Buttigieg, as far as I'm concerned. But the funny thing is, Buttigieg's campaign bought the app. And isn't it odd that the app that Pete Buttigieg's campaign bought was showing Pete Buttigieg in number one position in the Iowa caucus? Isn't that strange? Imagine that. After all this time, after a week, because right now it's Friday on the right coast, on the East Coast. So it's Friday, as of right now, Friday on the East Coast, 9:10 p.m. on the left coast. They still don't have results. There are no results. Here's a story from Fox News. DNC chairman calls for recanvass of Iowa caucuses. AYFKM, no, not kidding. DNC chairman Tom Perez said today, well, it's today, it's Thursday on the left coast, it's tomorrow on their coast. He called for the Iowa Democratic Party to conduct a recanvass after the state's caucuses earlier this week were mired in confusion and have yet to produce a definitive result. Okay, it's too stupid to mention again, which is why I'm going to mention it again. These are the people, yes, that you want running your health care, having complete control over your lives, with the efficiency, efficacy, kindness, smoothness, and saliency of your local DMV on its worst drunken day. That's like putting them in charge and having the DMV, all the people that are there, like that Monday after the Super Bowl, those people in that condition are going to make life-changing decisions for you. Yeah, not really. So Tom Perez said, oh, okay, well, come on. There were difficulties, air quotes, difficulties with the delegate selection plan and concern over public trust in the results of Monday's caucuses after 3 days of controversy. Public trust. Huh. Imagine that. Kidding, not kidding? No, not kidding. And they still can't do that. Then we had the impeachment vote. My, that was exciting. That was yesterday. That was Wednesday. So people are making an interesting point about Mitt Romney having voted guilty for Article 1 in the impeachment against Donald John Trump. So Mitt Romney goes away. He's the only stand-up guy, according to all the Democrats, the only stand-up guy on the Republican team. So he votes guilty. Trump is guilty of Article 1 of obstruction. Here's the funny thing that nobody seems to mention. Odd, isn't it? In chronological order, this is what happened. Let's see. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine. Romney badmouths Trump very publicly. Oh, let's go back further. When Romney was running for president, he later told his son that, overall, he really wasn't that interested in running for president anyway, which is why I said I would never vote for another Romney again. But having said that, okay, so the Democrats unload on Romney. He's a dog killer. He's a big corporate dude. Now all of a sudden, magically, they love him. Then Romney badmouths Trump very publicly as he's running. Then Romney goes running to Trump because he wants to be Secretary of State. Trump's Secretary of State choice turns out to be Rex Tillerson, not Mitt Romney. Then God magically tells Romney to vote against Trump. Huh, imagine that. So apparently it really must be God speaking. It's not Romney. Romney would not be craven enough to vote that way just because he doesn't like Donald John Trump. No, God told him that. Here's another interesting point about why Romney might want to be avoiding anything Ukraine these days. A story came out from the Federalist. Top Romney advisor worked with Hunter Biden on board of Ukrainian energy company. Why is it that everybody is linked to Ukraine? Would it be possibly because Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries around? And people want to do deals with Ukraine, which may be why Trump said, before I send any money to Ukraine, I'd like to find out a little bit more about it, and hence the whistleblower, Eric Ciaramella. The whistleblower, by the way, folks, for the NSA, DIA, and anyone else, CIA, that happens to be listening, the whistleblower's name is Eric, E-R-I-C, Ciaramella, C-I-A-R-A-M-E-L-L-A. If you just tuned in, Eric Ciaramella. Imagine that. According to the New Yorker, Hunter Biden joined Burisma's board in April of 2014 and remained on it until he declined to renew his position this past May. Meanwhile, according to Burisma's website, there's a guy, a top Mitt Romney advisor named Joseph Cofer Black, who publicly goes by Cofer Black. He joined Burisma's board of directors while Hunter Biden was also serving on the board. Like I said, according to Burisma's website, Black was appointed in February of 2017, and he continues to serve on the board. And yet, everybody doesn't want to talk about this. And while we're talking about Mitt Romney, how about this? I found this just packed with buttery schadenfreude. American Conservative Union formally disinvites Mitt Romney from CPAC this year, which is going to be occurring later this month. So the American Conservative Union, the ACU, Matt Schlapp, the chairman, formally disinvited Senator Mitt Romney. Oh, all you people in Utah are so glad you have been blessed to have Mitt Romney working for you, who was officially disinvited from this year's CPAC. That's the Conservative Political Action Conference. Quite frankly, because he decided that he was going to step out of bounds and not go with caucus. Didn't see that coming. Not at all. CPAC, by the way, if you're interested, I think Ken McClinton is going to go to CPAC and a few other people. I think our very own SHR's very own Jeff Dunitz is going to go to CPAC. Let's see, that starts February 26th at the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center. Some of the speakers, it's going to be packed with a lot of good folks. Maybe that's why they call it CPAC. Devin Nunes is going to be there, an actual Californian who's a conservative. You might want to go up and just touch his coat, just on account of because it's so unusual. Mark Levin is going to be there. Brexit leader Nigel, come on, dude. Come on, man. Nigel Farage. He's going to be, they're going to be some of the speakers that are on there. I didn't want to play the full State of the Union tonight. I'm going to play some bits and pieces that are coming up. But I have some observations before we get to some audio cuts of that about the State of the Union speech by President Trump. And in keeping with that, there was a Democrat response from some chick from Michigan who no one has ever heard of before and no one really cares about. As it shouldn't shock anybody, I'm going to vote for Trump again in 2020. The contrasts that are involved in that are absolutely just too much to overcome. I'm not going to vote for anything left anymore, period. End of statement. I support the same causes that Trump generally, he's proven that he's going to uphold the bulk of these, and pretty much everything else is just, I told people originally, I'm going to vote for Trump just because A, he's not Hillary Clinton, and B, I think he's going to do some good things with SCOTUS. Anything above and beyond that was just gravy as far as I was concerned. So when Nancy Pelosi, as Speaker of the House, decided that she was going to rip up, by the way, Representative Matt Gaetz is seeking censure on Nancy Pelosi for doing this and a potential criminal cost because that happens to be the primary copy of the presidential speech that generally gets entered into history in the House and the Senate. So when Nancy Pelosi decided that she was going to rip up that script, so what she did is she ripped up, let me see if I can go down this correctly and remember all of it. One of our last surviving Tuskegee airmen, who was appointed a brigadier general by Trump a day or two before he appeared, already had his 103rd birthday. She ripped up the survival of a child born at 21 weeks, I think it was. She decided that she was going to rip up all the mourning families. And I think these are Gold Star families of Rocky Jones and Kayla Mueller. She decided she was going to rip up a service member's reunion with his family, and that's the legacy of Pelosi. I'm not a socialist. If you become a socialist, you become a communist. The lovely communist dogma is responsible for killing roughly 100 million plus people in 100 years. I'm not going to go down that path. I'm not going to go down that path at all. Here's the story. I just found it from the USAF, airforce.mil.news. Tuskegee Airman receives promotion to Brigadier General. And let's see, that occurred on February 5th. Celebrating a 100th birthday is monumental in and of itself, but for the retired Colonel Charles E. McGee, that's the guy. Shortly after the celebration, he would reach yet another milestone in his career, so he promoted him to Brigadier General. But the thing I want to do is I'd also like to... This is what Nancy Pelosi decided that she was going to rip up. This, all of this, right here.
In the gallery tonight, we have a young gentleman and what he wants so badly, 13 years old, Ian Lawnfay. He's an 8th grader from Arizona. Ian, please stand up. Ian has always dreamed of going to space. He was the first in his class and among the youngest at an aviation academy. He aspires to go to the Air Force Academy, and then he has his eye on the Space Force. As Ian says, most people look up at space. I want to look down on the world.
That's cool. The great-grandson of Charles McGee.
But sitting behind
Pelosi sat
Ian
for
tonight
that.
is his greatest hero of them all. Charles McGee was born in Cleveland, Ohio, 1 century ago. Charles is one of the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen, the first black fighter pilots, and he also happens to be Ian's great-grandfather.
What a stud. Now she stands for him.
Incredible story. After more than 130 combat missions in World War II, he came back home to a country still struggling for civil rights and went on to serve America in Korea and Vietnam. On December 7th, Charles celebrated his 100th birthday. A few weeks ago, I signed a bill promoting Charles McGee to Brigadier General, and earlier today, I pinned the stars on his shoulders in the Oval Office. General McGee, our nation salutes you. Thank you, sir.
What a guy. Rousing round of applause from all the military members there, and also from all the SCOTUS members who happened to stand up for him during that. AOC, however, decided that she was going to skip the State of the Union And she was going to stay home and attack Rush Limbaugh, who, oddly enough, was just recently diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So as far as she's concerned, screw him. Cancer, that ain't nothing. So she decides that she's going to call him a violent racist. So I think 2 people stayed home, stayed away from the State of the Union speech. AOC was one of them, and the other person was somebody who makes absolutely no significance whatsoever. This is what AOC had to say about skipping the State of the Union speech, and I guess it's all because of Rush Limbaugh? Or is it?
Freedom. First of all, the Presidential Medal of Freedom is an extraordinarily sacred award. We're talking about putting someone on the same level as Rosa Parks, for example, in terms of their contributions to American progress. Rush Limbaugh is a viral...
Yeah, stop, you ignorant bint. Let's see, musicians have gotten that too, as a matter of fact. So, yeah, not just a Rosa Parks.
Racist, but...
Oh, wait, we missed that part.
Rush Limbaugh is a virulent racist, but... Even just on top of that, right. To do it in the middle of a State of the Union and not even dignify it with its own ceremony as it has, there's all sorts of norms.
That's funny. That's his State of the Union to conduct. Isn't it odd? Nancy Pelosi invited him over to the House to give the State of the Union speech. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's his speech to give and not yours.
That are being violated, not just for people's humanity, but also it truly just cheapens the value of it. Also, him pretending to be surprised was such a joke. This has been news all day. There have been multiple reports from multiple news outlets saying that Rush...
So Melania Trump standing and sitting next to Rush Limbaugh, and Rush Limbaugh doing the kind and cordial thing of acting surprised. I guess that's beyond your ability to understand, AOC. I guess you'd, turn around and, smack her in the face? Is that what you would do?
Limbaugh was going to receive the Medal of Freedom, and then Trump announced it, and he had to, pretend that this was some kind of Oprah moment. Was so...
Can you be more petty? Well, yeah, she can. Just listen.
Disingenuous. And to do that and to give it to Rush Limbaugh when there were plenty of people in that audience that have contributed positively to the fabric of American society, much more, frankly, than he has.
Okay, stop. You know what this has to do with, AOC? Elections. What did Obama tell us about elections? Let's see. Obama, if I'm not mistaken, said something similar to, elections have consequences. Well, that happens on both sides. However, caution, danger, Will Robinson, danger. When you're losing Van Jones, communist Van Jones on CNN.
Warning the Democrats. What he was saying to African Americans can be effective. You may not like it, but he mentioned HBCUs. Our black colleges have been struggling for a long time. A bunch of them have gone under. He threw a lifeline to them in real life, in his budget. He talked about that. He talked about the criminal justice reform. He talked about opportunity zones.
School choice.
He talked about school choice.
Darn Rush Limbaugh President Trump for trying to lift up black Americans. Isn't that odd that all along for 10 years, Obama had the same opportunities, the likes of which he never took? And this little tidbit as well. As all this kerfuffle was going on, Mitch McConnell, Cocaine Mitch, Leader McConnell, filed cloture on Executive Calendar number 563, Joshua M. Kindred to be U.S. District Judge for the District of Alaska. He just kind of slipped that in while everyone was looking over here and away. Squirrel! Here's another interesting point. Let's see, you seem to have lost Van Jones. And now it appears that you are losing a 75-year-old James Carville who was the campaign manager for William Jefferson Clinton and who has been hailed as a genius in terms of aligning that campaign. Well, it looks like the Democrat Party is losing James Carville as well. That's kind of strange. I got this from Mediaite, and we're gonna see if we can get this to play.
And well-positioned elsewhere, is she that alternative?
Let's bring in someone for whom this is not his first rodeo. James Carville is with us. He, for the record, endorsed Senator Michael Bennet in the 2020 race. James, I guess, first of all, your beloved party is having some issues, kind of the opposite.
Oh, like it's not your beloved party.
Of what LSU did this year. If this isn't a mess in Iowa, as I said to Claire McCaskill, it'll do until the mess gets here.
A mess in Iowa? Well, I just went over that, didn't I? Yeah, let's take this break and come back and talk about more Democrat messes, shall we? I'm BZ, the bloviating Zeppelin. Sorry that we have missed Dan. I've been trying to contact him, and I hope he's okay. We'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Shannon Wright of The Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Mike's not here, so I gotta talk fast. You gotta join us. Fall season. Getting ready to start up with a whole bunch of new stuff. News and food and politics and sports and entertainment and a whole bunch of stuff. But wait, Mike's coming. I gotta go. Remember, Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media, Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. Make sure you tune in.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Join me, Jack Alexander, for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the issues affecting the USA. I fearlessly take on the issues that everyone else is too scared to touch. The Jack Alexander Experiment podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. The Jack Alexander Experiment, because it's not a matter of left versus right, it's a matter of right versus wrong.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Featuring the effervescent contrarian Sackheads Clint, plus the unrestrained bulbosity of BZ, the Sackheads Against Tyranny is a real chat show. Doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with Double the Hosts, you can listen every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Please note, some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, warranty voided Montenegro.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Folks, it's the final 25 minutes, the final 25 on BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. And I gotta tell you, welcome back. Unfortunately, we missed Dan Butcher. He left at about midnight on the East Coast, 9 o'clock on the left coast. Hope Dan is doing okay. We'll have Dan back. In the meantime, you got a friend to follow and like the SHR Media Facebook page and subscribe to our SHR Media YouTube channel. Got to go there, quick like a bunny, click notifications, and give all of our videos a big thumbs up. A big thumbs up, just like this. If you're watching on Facebook or you're watching on YouTube, that is a big thumb, giving a big thumbs up. We got great hosts, great videos, and great shows. If you are a supporter of the Second Amendment, as I am, then also, if you are on Facebook, go over to the USGOA, the U.S. Gun Owners Association, run by Fred Witzel, Texas Fred, and join the USGOA. Great articles on guns, firearms, reviews, tests, the Second Amendment, everything you could possibly want right there. When last we left, we were listening to we were going to listen to James Carville express some, I guess you could call it, serious concern for the Democrats. And he's on MSNBC, and he says he's kind of alarmed and kind of shook up with what's happening with the DNC these days.
Well, Fred, there are other things that worry me. Apparently, the turnout in Iowa was not what I would expect it, other people would expect it. I know the numbers are still coming in, but people are telling me it's more like 2016 and 2018. The polling averages have not been very good the last 10 days.
Imagine that.
And I've seen some pretty good polls that show enthusiasm among Democrats is not as high as we might like it. So there's something with, as people are watching this process, that is concerning them. I do want to take the chance to congratulate Mayor Pete and his staff. That was a remarkable night that they had in Des Moines. But I think this is not going particularly well so far. And why is Tom Perez still the chairman of the Democratic National Committee? I have no idea. This party needs to wake up and make sure that we talk about things that are relevant to people. We need to go back to 2018, where we had good, diverse, strong candidates that had real connections to the community and talked about real things. We don't need to become the British Labour Party. That's a bad thing. It's not going well over there. So Democrats, and now I want to see these candidates, and Mayor Pete's got something going. Hopefully Senator Warren can become that student at the University of Houston, that single mother that knows that plights that people go through. Who knows? Maybe Mayor Mike can come on. But right now, I got to tell you, I'm not very impressed.
I got to say, James, I'm amazed at how often I hear Democrats reminding other Democrats, if you don't win, none of it's worth anything.
Nothing. Without power, there's only one moral imperative in this country right now, and that is to beat Donald Trump. That's the only moral imperative. It's the only thing I want to hear. Until we understand that. Look, we win every argument, Brian. We win an argument on anything. We don't win elections because we talk about stuff that is not relevant. We had a great experience in 2018, and the day after, we started all this goofy stuff. So hopefully we got time to jerk this thing back and be about health care and prescription drug prices and education and infrastructure. And
isn't that fat? Isn't that funny? Prescription drug prices, health care, those are the exact same things that Trump is talking about. Well, he's beating you at your own damn game, Jimmy.
Climate and diplomacy and rejuvenating, whatever it is. But this is not happening so far. And we can't act like this is going well. We can't come out and put 3 wonderful talking points. We need to, these campaigns have got to be more relevant. For God's sake, Senator Warren, get real out here, and you know, let's move this thing along. I mean, we got to do that.
Joe Biden barely fit on the graphic we have next to you. Came out of there 4th place.
Yeah, James just made a really good point, which is funny. I went out of my way to find Democrats in distress. I guess we could call it DID, yeah. Democrats in distress, did. Because it's caucus day in Iowa. Here's MSNBC. Here's Chris Matthews. Uh-oh. What's Chris Matthews saying about the Democrats?
What are my thoughts?
James,
I'm
good
not
to
happy.
see you on a big night.
I'm not happy with his field.
You look at the
I
numbers
think
we
they gotta
now
find a candidate
have.
for president.
More
that can beat
people
Trump.
showed up to their
And
caucus
you don't
sites
think
according to the new numbers in the first
I'm still looking. Still looking.
Okay, let's start that over again.
Obvious problems. They're all problems.
There was a little
Bernie
bit of
Sanders-
an audio conflict. Let's go back a little bit. Let's start again with Chris.
What are my thoughts? I'm not happy. I'm not happy with his field. I think they got to find a candidate for president that can beat Trump.
And you don't think anybody in this field
I'm
can beat
looking.
Trump?
I'm still looking.
Still looking.
What's the problem?
Obvious problems. They're all problems.
What's
Bernie
the
Sanders
problem?
is not going to be president of the United States. Okay? I went back to the 72 race. I was a young volunteer for the DNC. I was working
Okay,
for a senator.
I missed
from,
that.
Okay? I went back to the 72 race. I was a young
Hang on.
Bernie Sanders is not going to be president of the United States.
Bernie Sanders is not going to be president of the United States. So says MSNBC's Chris Matthews. That's interesting.
Okay? I went back to the 72 race. I was a young volunteer for the DNC. I was working for a senator from Utah at the time. I've got to tell you, it feels a lot like it. A lot of giddiness, a lot of excitement. I'm thrilled about this guy.
You're saying a lot like McGovern?
Well, exactly, because he was very excited. He excited the party completely, blew away a really good candidate like Muskie, a really good guy. Blew him right out of the water because he had some issues. Now, analytically, I think a couple things have happened. One is Warren was riding high. I thought she was going to sweep through everything. I should first 2 easily and just keep going. She was the one candidate I thought could do that. What happened? She got a lot of scrutiny. You don't want a lot of scrutiny, and she got a lot of it. Does this stuff add up? The Medicare for all, the free college, all that stuff got killed. Guess who's going to get it now? Bernie's going to get it now. Bernie's going to ride high, and he's finally going to get scrutiny about his whole life, his ideology, his whole life, who did he root for all his life. Who is this guy ideologically? It's not.
He should be. Every one of these assholes should be scrutinized. Just like Donald James Trump is scrutinized. OMB, Orange Man Bad, the guy with the dead orange cat on his
Not
head.
just the nice, good stuff like health care. Why does he say the stuff he does about Maduro and people like that? Why does he say Denmark one week and then somebody else? I mean, people got to figure out who the guy is. Yeah. I think I know because I've dealt with these guys most of my adult life. They're usually the guys at the card tables at an anti-war rally. There'll be there some old guy with some old literature from this socialist party or that, trying to sell it, trying to latch on to the anti-war movement. There's always guys like that. And they're usually, you know, as Howard Fine once said, non-negotiable demands, you know, yelling up at the administration building during the anti-war movement. I know them, but I think the country's going to get to know them. I think we got a problem. We'll see. But, you know, nobody's going to say it tonight. They're all going to be cheering. Good old Bernie. You know, I think he's going to win big tonight. Real big.
Well, as it turns out, he potentially is going to come in number 2 to Buttigieg. But who's waiting in the wings? That's the big question. Haven't people said that Hillary sack dress Clinton, she's waiting in the wings? Jason Miller, I think, in D.C., said Hillary Clinton is not out there on this media tour beating up Bernie Sanders just because she's bitter from 4 years ago. Oh, no. She wants, and people have said, a brokered convention. She doesn't want to have to run like all the little people. You squirts. She's not a squirt. She's a big person. She wants an opening under a brokered convention to just step in there and take over, right?
You can see why so many Trump allies want to see Bernie Sanders be the nominee. I mean, if Bernie Sanders is the nominee,
I mean, Trump could put up some really, really huge numbers, which would be great. So I love it. And the fact that they're trying to steal the election from him and already talking about how they changed delegate rules and who might emerge or who might jump in. Secretary Clinton, crooked. You know, she's just, I mean, you see that media tour that she's on? And I know a lot of folks in the media like try to troll me on this and like, oh, you're just like to throw out Hillary to get, you know, watchers of the show all fired up. She's not out there on this tour. She's not out there beating up Bernie Sanders just because she's bitter from 4 years ago. It's because she wants there to be an opening so she can ride in and save the day.
Imagine that. So, Jack Alexander, my good friend, maybe there's something to that. It's also funny we discovered, and if you watched, I watched over again to just make sure. The New York Post had an article that came out that showed in great detail, they featured the video, Nancy Pelosi was pre-ripping the pages of Trump's State of the Union speech. The video did in fact show, I guess for whatever reason, she failed to think that she had sufficient hand strength to rip them completely in her show of shows when she decided that she was going to, you know, go off and get petty, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, one thing that I've wanted to do for quite some time now, this year I said was going to be BZ's year of doubling down. I'm going to have BZ's The Zeppelin's Manifesto on Tuesday night. It's a summary of why I'm voting for Trump. It's a summary of how we got here. If you want to hear someone cork off a little bit, you might want to show up Tuesday night after Jeff Dennett's and listen to the Zeppelin's Manifesto, because I'm going to point fingers, name names, pull out the pitchforks and the torches, and we're going to go for it. There's no more holding back. There's no more being kind. There's no more bipartisanship. There's no more compromise. That stuff is all well and good. Those were yesterday's Republicans, and we cannot afford for those to be today's Republicans. Today, Nancy Pelosi, well, I should say Thursday, because it's tomorrow on the East Coast, Pelosi called Trump's speech, the one that she tore up, the official copy that should have been put in House archives, but she decided to rip in numerous pieces. She says today that that is a manifesto of mistruths. Well, in about 2.5 minutes, what does Nancy have to say about all of that? Nancy?
Did you step on that message by tearing up?
No, I did not. No, I did not. I tore up a manifesto of mistruths. It's very hard for us to get you to talk about the issues that we are working on, H.R. 3. And
Wait. Does she know who she's talking to? She's talking to the American media maggots in front of her who have been carrying her water for years, not just years, but decades. And now all of a sudden, because the Democrats are not winning, it's their problem. They're not holding up their end of the bargain because she's failing. The Democrats are failing, and you always, like a drowning individual, you always want to make sure that you go up to the person that has the life preserver and kill them too, because why not?
Infrastructure and the rest. He misrepresented all of that. It was necessary to get the attention of the American people to say, this is not true, and this is how it affects you. And I don't need any lessons from anybody, especially the President of the United States, about dignity. Dignity. Is it okay to start saying 4 more years in the House of Representatives?
What? That's his State of the Union speech to make. Bint, it's not yours to make. You didn't get elected to president either. Oh, Obama chimes in my ear once again. Elections have consequences.
But it's just unheard of. Is it unheard of for the president to insult people there who don't share his view, as well as to misrepresent, present falsehoods. Some would use...
Like what? Like what? Like what? Name names, point points.
Use the word lie. I don't like to use the word lie about what he is saying. So, no, I think it was completely, entirely appropriate. And considering some of the other exuberances within me, the courteous thing to do. I don't know if the president understands about prayer or people who do pray, but we do pray for the United States of America.
Nancy Pelosi hasn't been in a church since the last time she had to drive by one to go to this. I'm sorry, to have her driver go to the store to get her vodka.
Pray for him. I President Bush, still President.
Okay, that's one thing we do have in common. I do like vodka. Okay, all right. Potato water, Russian potato water, not that bad. Actually, mine is Danish potato water.
Obama, because it's a heavy responsibility. And I pray hard for him because he's so off the track of our Constitution, our values, our country, the air our children breathe, the water they drink, and the rest. He really needs our prayers.
Flint, Michigan, the city that decided that it was going to not pay enough money because they're cheap bastards and let their water get tainted with terrible chemicals. And also Flint, Michigan, the same city that recently, within the past week and a half or 2 weeks, it was discovered that there was a warehouse full of bottled water that did not get distributed to the citizens when they desperately needed them back when the water crisis first occurred in Flint. Imagine, that's a Democrat mayor, too. I thought I should mention that.
So he can say whatever he wants. He can say whatever he wants, but I do pray for him, and I do so
bullshit. You pray for him
sincerely and without anguish. Gently. That's why I pray for him.
Gently, yeah. She wishes the cargo door from a 747 to hit him on the head and crush him. Let's be serious.
For everybody else, I thought what he said about Senator Romney was particularly without class.
He didn't say that in the State of the Union. You're talking about the State of the Union speech. What about whatever it is that Romney happened to say about President Donald John Trump? And then he came kissy face all up to Trump to try to see if he could get the Secretary of State slot. Once he was turned down for Secretary of State, was Mittens all contrite? No, he decided that he was going to vote against Donald John Trump and, guilty on Article 1.
What did he say? There's some people who use faith as an excuse to do the wrong things. You remember?
Yeah, like you.
What he said about Romney? You got that there? It's so inappropriate at a prayer breakfast. You want to go to the prayer breakfast, prayer in the school, vouchers, women's right to choose, all those things that's a ripe audience for. God bless you. It's a prayer breakfast, and that's...
Anybody hear Nancy Pelosi say something similar to God bless you in the past 75 years that she's been in the House? Hands? Bueller?
Something about faith. It may not be something I agree with, but it's appropriate. But to go into the stock market and raising up his acquittal thing and mischaracterizing other people's motivation, he's talking about things that he knows little about. Faith and prayer.
Really? Huh? Just like you. Imagine that. No, we don't need to imagine that at all. There was one of the most, I may get this story in and maybe one more before the end of the show. There was an article that was tacitly and completely ignored that came out from the Washington Free Beacon. And because I'm alert and aware, and we need more alerts, the Washington Free Beacon, let's see, what day was this? Just a couple of days ago, if I'm not mistaken. February 4th. So 2 days ago. From a guy named Colin Anderson. The Washington Free Beacon came out and said that House Democrat admits that they block legislation because, and this is obvious, we've known this for quite some time, finally there's a Democrat who's going to admit the obvious. That's the earth-shaking issue of this. There's a House Democrat who says that They block legislation because we don't want to give the president a win. Well, yeah, that's very, very true.
And it's shockingly a different mindset. So when I go, I've gone up to people and said, I need to get this piece of legislation passed. And they say, oh yeah, we just passed it. I said, yeah, we just passed it. I need the Senate to pass it, and then I need the president to sign it. And they said, well, we don't want to give the president a win.
We don't want to give the president a win because making all of you, me, you, and everyone else listening, making all you poor saps suffer is much more important to the Democrats than actually holding things and trying to make things better for the American people. Because here's what the Democrats have for the future. 5 days ago, they already said, this is before the acquittal. President Trump's scrutiny by Congress, they state, will not end with his expected acquittal, as was written 5 days ago. House Democrats have a list of inquiries they plan to pursue when the impeachment saga is over. Let's stop here for a moment. Donald John Trump is enjoying his highest ratings ever. I indicated earlier in the show, independents are at 80% approval of Donald John Trump and the job that he's doing right now. Not the Democrats. Representative Carolyn Maloney of New York, she's head of the Oversight and Reform Committee. She's the lead investigator in the House. She said the investigations and the oversight will continue. We've got several cases. Okay, so the Democrats are, in fact, like the mentally challenged, like the insane. They think that doing the same thing over and over and over again will yield somehow different results. The Democrats are in chaos. They are fucking falling apart. It was Russia. No, let me go back. First, it was Trump saying, you know what? I think I've been wiretapped in Trump Tower. Well, that turned out to be true. Then it was Russia, Teflon. Then it was recession, Teflon. Then it was Ukraine, Teflon. Then it was Iowa, Teflon. That's falling apart. They still don't have any conclusive results. They can't even perform a caucus. The big question about that is, do you think they're going to go back to Iowa for another caucus next year? Or excuse me, in 2024? Well, it kind of makes you wonder. Then impeachment lost that. Losers. So, can the Democrat Party stand at this point? Are they going to continue like the way of the Whigs? Or is there going to be a brand new party of socialists? Or will the people who really do like socialism, are they going to splinter off? And my suggestion would be, just as I said to McCain, just be honest, change your R to a D and be done with it. Romney, just be honest. I appreciate honesty. Change your R to a D and be done with it. Democrats, just be honest. Kick the Democrat Party to the curb and just embrace the socialists. That's who you are. That's who you are becoming. Just do it. Embrace it. We'll see how far you get on that.
Monsieur has been locked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. You want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP. And on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, the Shure Microphone Company, and Electro Voice Microphones, Arrakis Boards, and Pratt & Whitney Engines. Thrust, you can trust. Tiaras are by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team with whom I shall be consorting in less than an hour. And thanks to Dan Butcher for being here in the first hour. Thanks to everybody here who was listening live, listening in chat. Thanks for being in chat. And thanks for listening in podcast. I get a ton of people that are listening in podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you folks for taking the time out of your busy night to do so, or day if you're listening in podcast. Folks, have a great weekend. Be here on Tuesday, next Tuesday night. Jeff Dunitz, Thursday night. Ralph Chittum's. God bless, take care, be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good
night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.